In fact, the growing politicization of our society, politics infecting everything, the increase in ideological debates, the tendency to see all problems as having a political solution, is in fact a sign not of a healthy politics, but rather of a society without a meaningful living politics. The fact that everything has become political is actually a sign that true politics is dead. The fact that the state is asserting itself into more and more areas of our lives, that the government is involved in almost every facet of our lives, is a sign that the bureaucracy is no longer there to be filled with the political will of the people. The state in its entirety can no longer even be directed by the politicians or the parties themselves. The bureaucracy has become an entity of its own, a power in its own right. The most telling sign of the political power of the bureaucracy is that it has now produced its own class with its own class interests. The manager, the expert. They are not the instruments of others, they have become their own power with their own interests and aims. Ellul argues that this new politicized reality where the individual's life is seized by the power of the state as expressed in the bureaucracy is far worse, far more serious, and far more decisive than economic alienation. Political slavery has been substituted for economic slavery. As authors like James Burnham has also noted, no longer is the true power held by the bourgeoisie. Rather, it is held by the professionals who staff the administrative state. This transformation occurred in part through democracy itself. This idea that the masses would participate in politics or the state is relatively new. It used to be that a revolution was merely a palace coup that left the general population untouched. But once democracy invited the participation of everyone, it also brought about the converse. The state now needs to involve itself in the lives of everyone. Because of the necessity to win votes, politicians need to give the perception that they are addressing the felt needs of the voters. This means implementing policies and establishing bureaucracies to manage those policies. Once involved, though, the presence of the state remains, gradually swallowing up and politicizing an ever greater part of people's lives, but also involving the whole of society. Everything is thus political. This general dynamic generates the myth of politicization. Not only do we think that the state must solve all problems, but that the state is both qualified and able to address every problem in every area of life. We are now in a position where we cannot conceive of a society except as directed by a central, omnipresent, and omnipotent state. This is the implication of the idea that the government must address every issue our society faces and that it is capable of addressing them. We act as if the state is all-powerful, omnipotent. This utopian view of government has become deeply ingrained in our consciousness. It is now hard to imagine any other group or institution other than the state being able to address problems. For the world to be properly ordered, the state must have all the power. All questions are political, and those that currently are not must become politicized. In the old days, the idea of a state religion was a reality and perhaps even a threat to the state. But there was not in those days a religion of the state, that is, a worship of the state itself. When the state becomes the omnipotent force in society able to solve all problems, this effectively divinizes the state. The state becomes God. All moral values in this situation become politicized. Even ideas like liberty, freedom, justice only find their meaning in regard to the state. The only freedoms that matter are those which are secured, granted, and enforced by the state. For example, women can only realize their worth when they receive political rights. Any talk of the value of motherhood is simply reactionary. A person without the right, in reality magical, to replace a paper ballot in a box is nothing, not even a person. In this regards, all progress can only be realized through the state. Ellul sums up the essence of the relationship with the state. Progress is to receive this power, this mythical share in a theoretical sovereignty that consists in surrendering one's decisions for the benefit of someone else who will make them in one's place. This is the catch-22 of the state. The more that we wish to be involved in the life of the state through democratic institutions, the more that we wish the state to respond to our wishes and demands as voters, the more that we hand power over to the state to address these same problems. Eventually, the state has its fingers in every aspect of our lives because we demanded sovereignty. The end point of parliamentary democracy is the omnipotent authoritarian state. If we turn back the clock several hundred years, what did people want from this new style of government, that is, parliamentary democracy? Well, they wanted effective control over the police. They did not want to pay taxes except for those which they agreed to, like a voluntary contribution. They did not want to go to war except when they, the people, would want to go to war. They wanted to be able to express their ideas freely in public. They wanted each person to be able to affect public opinion. This sentiment about the nature of what parliamentary democracy should be has remained. The masses who do not actually participate in political affairs firmly believe that they do. In addition, make their illusory participation in the principal criterion of dignity, personality, and liberty. The true heretic of our day is the person who has no interest in politics. The energy with which we put into politics reinforces the political and never weakens it. In fact, for many, for most, the consoling presence of their lives that used to be occupied by religious desires are now found in politics. We have a faith that politics can solve the problems of human life. What the churches have lost has been found by the political institutions.